All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to get rolling in a moment here. Thanks for joining us. Just wait for a handful of people to come back on. Even though we are live streaming this, we won't put any of your faces on the internet, but I've heard this from past presenters before. If you're cool putting your video feed on so Peter can see who he's talking to, that sometimes feels good. Otherwise, it kind of feels like you're talking to a blankish screen, but we'll make that optional. It's certainly not a requirement. I'm going to give you the first pass of, or the first copy of the pour list, just in case there's any stragglers. It's in the chat there. So if you want to pour your drams, do you call them, and Peter, you are muted, do you call them drams with rum, or do we have your tots of rum?
I prefer to talk about tots, if only because Atom is very much, who own Boutique-y Rum Company, are very much a whiskey company. So if I can say anything that kind of fucks with their mentality, then that's so much the better for me. All
right, perfect. So pour your tots out. We're starting with the Diamond Versailles 16-year, then the Engenhos do Norte, Madeira Portuguese rum, the Signature Blend #1, Secret Distillery #1 batch 2 from Jamaica, Venezuela 13-year, then the Casa Santana, and then the Haitian rum to round things out. So you've all got the order there in front of you. Peter, brand ambassador for That Boutique-y Rum Company, thank you for joining us tonight. Not only is it past midnight, but you're a bit under the weather. So we certainly appreciate you soldiering through this for us tonight.
That's cool. I'm very happy to be here with you guys. Yeah, it's our brand ambassador. That's a weird title for Atom. So I'll are we good to we're good to roll? Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, we're good to roll. We're recording.
Yeah,
we're live on Facebook. And if there's a better title for you, how would you?
Well, I kind of just like the word sometimes just like I'm just when the company started up. So I mean I've been with Atom since 2017, and the guy in charge, Ben, was like, "Oh, we want to set the rum thing up," and it took a little while to kind of get it going, and then it launched in October 2018. The actual as a brand went live then. That was a busy month. BCB and all kinds of things we were popping around, and I was only doing like a couple of days a month, like on a consultancy basis with them, and I'm just a rum guy. I'm just a rum guy, you know. That's kind of the way I saw myself. Everyone at Atom Brands, Atom, who owns Atom is this big company that owns all manner of different things going on. And the Boutique-y Rum Company is a sibling to the Boutique-y Whiskey Company and to Gin Company. And then there's all kinds of other things, like they have an online retailer called Master and Malt. They've got brands like Bathtub Gin and Rum Bully and all manner of things going on. It's a big deal thing. But like nobody seems to be doing the rum. So I was like, oh, I'm just a rum guy. It's like, don't anything about that. But just after they launched, they go like, okay, we want to go and do extra. Have you got any extra time, Pete? You could give us it per month. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, money's good, it's fine. You want to pay me a little extra, it's fine. Okay, we'll call you global brand ambassador. So I did travel to a few places, like global brand ambassador sounds really impressive, but don't really travel a lot with a brand.
Have you been to Brighton? Is that what you're trying to tell us? You've been an hour.
I'm saying it's next time. Invite me to Canada. Like I'll be there with you in person. No, it's so we do these things. I spend most of my time with Atom is actually behind the scenes. There's very little in getting out in front of people. So it is kind of it's a weird title, because normally brand ambassador comes with an expectation of an expense card and schmoozing people in late in the wee hours until in bars and things like that. And regrettably, I haven't done any of that as far as Atom's concerned. Lots of things have changed with the company as well. They don't quite market themselves in the way that they did, but that's okay. It's all right. So basically, if anyone's got a question about Boutique-y Rum or like that, they tend to ask. Yeah, they get directed my way. I'm very happy to be working with a brand, and it's a nice way for me to get an experience of a wide range of. I work part-time with these guys. It is generally not a full-time job, and I also work with another brand as well out of Barbados. And then other times I'm doing all kinds of things. So I lead a very rummy lifestyle in general. you say, I just was. I've had London Whisky Show, and then Salon de Rum in Belgium, where I was actually representing Boutique-y Rum overseas. So that was it was kind of cool. And then we just had London Rum Fest. All these long sort of 3-day weekends in front of thousands of people. I'm bound I've got a cold somewhere along the line, so, so I picked up something. I'm not COVID, but I'm a little bit weird. So I was just napping, unfortunately. So my wife just shook me at 11:30 my time, going like, "You got a thing going about half an hour, haven't you?" Going, "Shit, okay, up." I've gone from horizontal to vertical. So that nap's going to completely bugger my sleep pattern up tonight. Something rotten. What we need to do is we need to put something in our glasses, because rum always cures all, one way or the other. So pour yourself some the Diamond Distillery, and we will start there. So what I thought I'd do is I use the running order, which is not in a perfect kind of. I did fret a little bit about which one we're going to start and where we're going to move to. But what I want to do is I want to use the opportunity, the liquid and the some of the stories with it, just to kind of talk about some of the issues we have in the rum world. My goal always is to talk about rum and to up the way that we think about rum. I don't want. I know the struggles that rum has globally in the commercial market, and then the way we sort of want to tackle this. So. So yeah, so I'm going to use these as trigger points. Please do ask questions if if you're thinking it, and guarantee somebody else is. There'll be a full admission that I can't give you every specific detail about every part of this, every bottle in front of us, but that's part of the way we talk about it. We're trying to sort of to share what we can. What's that? I saw a question mark flash up then. What was that? Oh, what are the struggles? Okay, getting straight in with that one. Yeah, right. Well, mostly it's perception. We have, we in the world of rum, those who know that there's some amazing stuff out there. In general, when people talk about, and this is probably at Atom as well, as most people that go to the company that owns Boutique-y Rum, they're whiskey people, and they love whiskey. And it's fantastic. They're all about whiskey, but they kind of go like, oh, but I don't really understand rum, or I don't know it as well. If I was to take you out to my hallway, I've got like literally hundreds and hundreds of bottles of rum down the hallway just over there. And, and I've tried a lot of rum, and I feel like I kind of understand the category fairly well. But the problem we have in the rum world, I think, is one of perception. And lots of people think that rum is just, my wife's grabbing the phone and walking off with it. The thing is, it's just like cheap pouring liquid, you see, you think about rum, you think about like people go like, oh yeah, I love rum. And then they reel off about 10 different spice rums, or they might start with Malibu or whatever like that. So what we need in the rum world is we need to convert people to say, make sure they know that there's lots of really good sipping liquid out there, and that it is good quality, but I suppose the benefit of the rum world is that a lot of what's made is poured in mixed drinks, which equates to volume sales. But it's also, and I can only speak this more confidently about from the UK point of view, is that rum in the UK is seen as a cheap liquid. Nobody expects it to be expensive, and so when it's cheap, well, that comes with problems as well. So that's part of it. But perception and language is part of the problem. So we don't talk about. I don't try to talk about rums by color. If it's white and it's see-through, well, what can you call it? White rum, but we don't talk about gold rum or dark rum. I try and use the Gargano classification, and that's something I'll mention as we kind of go along. And so it's really trying to be more positive around the category. First rum, I'm not, and something I don't. This might prove to be a pain for you guys, but I don't lead on tasting notes. What you're tasting, what you're getting, is very personal to you. Like if I said I'm getting like wet dog, we could argue about which breed is it. Was it Alsatian or Labrador? These are semantics. Like, it's more important that that when you try something, that what you're getting, in my opinion, is that what you get on the nose is kind of consistent with what goes onto the palate, or if it's inconsistent, does it go in a harmonious way? Does it build the experience? Does it drop off? Can you, like, even if you can't vocalize like 2 or 3 different tasting notes, are you getting an obvious complexity? These are the things that are part of the enjoyment. So I'm not here to tell you what you're tasting. But I've never done that. That's not important to me. Um,
Yeah, and
but we are
Peter,
going to jump around a little bit. And so what I think what it is best to understand the world of rum. If you can, like the goal is to drink as much rum as you can. I know that one other person on there has done that same target in his life. You know, the only way you can understand rum is to drink all of it. And then if you can then backfill that by understanding the manufacturing processes that have used to create that, and I mean that in a kind of a top headline kind of way, then you understand the world of rum better. You know, and it's not to say that I wouldn't. I try not to if someone says, "Oh, I got a brand new rum," and they kind of give it to you, and you go, "It's from Dominican Republic." So I'm not trying. I kind of like I'm fairly confident with the style of Dominican Republic and everything that comes there. So you kind of like it comes with this expectation before you actually put it in your mouth. You kind of get an expectation of what it is, what you're likely to be getting, which is kind of dangerous. You still have to be open-minded and things. But the different producers from around the world have different styles. Countries have different styles. And when you start drilling down, that's when you need the information. Why start with this one? This one was for me was actually the beginning. I'm gonna wave this around in front of the screen a little bit. This was when I met Ben for the very first time, which
Peter,
was
I can one up you on that if you want. I can share my screen. I've
Cool.
got bottle shots of all these if that helps.
Nice, fair play.
Oh,
So
really?
the bowl there. So when I met with Ben, who says the guy Ben Elson, who director and co-owner of the company of Atom, who started Boutique-y Rum Company, you know, he goes like, so yeah, we had a good long chat. It was National Martini Day, so I ended up drinking martinis in London, which was a disaster. Two of them at lunchtime, and then ended up going on for a tasting event. Sort of set my day up in a big way. But he basically said, like, do you want to come and work with us? And I go like, fuck yeah. I love what Atom doing. Like Atom have got this kind of a very irrelevant kind of way of approaching the market. Boutique-y Whiskey Company is all about kind of, you know, excellent liquid, but they kind of like the way they sort of present and the labeling and stuff like that is kind of is almost a little Marmite. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Yeah, and we like to have a little bit of fun with it. We don't try to take ourselves massively seriously. Anyone who kind of, you know, the whiskey folks get it harder. They get whiskey shows. They'll get people coming up and going like, why would you put such like cartoony labels on the bottles? You're disrespecting the category and stuff like that. And I'm not a very, I'm not like, I don't get that. As soon as someone says you're not meant to do this, then that kind of puts my back up, and I kind of like, okay, well, I want to do that now. I want us to have a bit of fun. So the whole brand, the whole Boutique-y Rum brand was kind of created in that. But Ben had gone ahead and had this label commissioned with an online artist called Jim Will Paint It ahead of time. So he goes like, so when we did that, I'll kind of like a handshake. Yeah, I'm going to go. Well, I'll work with the company. He goes, oh, brilliant, thank you. It means I can show you this now, and I haven't wasted like how many 300 quid it was like getting it produced. So he'd chosen to come up with this label brief. Diamond Distillery. This is a Versailles still, so it's the single wooden pot still, single wooden vat still as they've got there, and it was kind of like the joke in the thing is like, well, you know, pot stills are heated by fire, how good's a wooden pot still heating it by fire, you know? And it's like this, we know it's done by steam, you know, it's like it's steam heated. But the idea was like, well, if you're gonna have a wooden pot still heated by fire, why, you know, that's pretty useless. And so the label then became a repository for all the other things that are also pretty useless. The fact that I'm on there, like the first rendering by Jim Will Paint It of me does kind of make me look a bit more like Jimmy, I like Rolf Harris, I think, on that one, which is a bit of a problem in hindsight. But you know, you got the inflatable dartboard, and you got a chocolate teapot and a glass hammer, and you know, ejector seat on a helicopter and things like that. So it was kind of like, it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny seeing myself on there. There was a bit of I'm supposedly the chap in the island shirt, and the guy next to us is a guy called Marcus Tandy, who was a very, very low grade character on a one series flop immediately soap opera called El Dorado, which was on British TV back in God knows when, donkey's years ago, and so he made it onto there as well, because El Dorado, well, that's a brand made at Diamond Distillery, and it's like their main export brand. So you know, it kind of like that was presented to me straight away, and it's like, okay, this is it. This I know where we're going with this one. The batch one where we launched with was whatever it was. Very quickly, we ended up releasing a batch 2, which is the one we're drinking tonight, and that came with a little extra information on the barrels that it was actually a KFM mark out of Diamond Distillery. This one was one of the ones. This is one of the ones I can give a little bit of information. It was distilled in 2002, and then was shipped to the UK in 2011. So it had a part sort of maturation of at source, and then in the UK, but the color is very, very pale. One of the other rums we actually launched with was, for its age, was so very crazy pale that I just kind of like, I just loved it. I fell in love with it. So when I was trying to be provocative at the beginning, when Ben met us, he comes like, he gives him this huge bag of samples and go like, okay, now we've agreed to work. I'm going to give you these. You tell me why we wouldn't bottle all of them. So my pleasant task when I got home was we got this huge bag of samples, and I kind of went through and tried them and go like, I like this one, or I don't like this one so much. And I kind of went back and go like, well, in my opinion, these ones maybe a little over oat or a little past their best, and this is the balance. So the initial offering of about 13 rums was based off of that kind of conversation, and it was a bit like thrown in the deep end as well, because nobody tells you how to do this stuff. Nobody sort of explains how you don't, when you're at school when you're doing careers advice, nobody ever like explains that you might be a rum person, like having to make shit up as you go along later on. So I can honestly say that everything in bottle is my fault, or my choice, or I had final say off on it. So that was pretty cool. In the case of this, in for a penny, in for a pound, eh? Very well.
Yeah.
Certainly feel better after this. It's got a lovely softness to it. And this is one of the things that kind of comes up, is that this idea of split maturation. So at source, fully at source is kind of like, seem to be the most authentic kind of rum, but there are lots of rums out there in the world that were acquired and were shipped and spent time in the UK. There's a default to lots of rum, all rum via independent bottlers comes to us via Main Rum, which is a company based out of Liverpool. And that's not actually true. Not all rum comes to us that way round, because a bit like the whiskey world, parcels of rum, barrels and things of rum, get passed around between people at times. So not everything comes directly from. So sometimes the sort of the route to us is a little different. But I like the profile. I like the fact that soft, it's tasty. The ABV is a little lower. You'll notice also as releases go by in time, we've crept up a little bit. At the beginning, I was just kind of there to act as a sounding board, and the team at Atom were choosing the ABV and they were designing the labels and things at the beginning. So the earlier releases, I had very little hand on. Then as things changed around, then I started to have more of a hand on it. And so we end up just releasing it at full cask strength or very close to. So this is possibly a little lower than I would have liked, but it's made lots of friends around the world. The labels themselves, we put on the front, we put the age, we put the batch number. If we know the mark, then I'll stick it on there as a little point of information. The KFM mark, people might ask, okay, so what does the full KFM mark mean? And the truth is, I don't know. It'll be a combination of fermentation and distillation details, but that's very much producer specific. I know very few producers in the world that will tell you exactly what the full mark means. We put the number of bottles that are in the outrun, in this case was a decent outrun, but the bit that's kind of just underneath the name, we put a little bit of information. So Diamond Facility, Distillery, we've got quite a few from Diamond. So in this case, we added the fact this is a Versailles still. But we put pot still rum, single distillery as a little note under there. And this is a constant through all of our bottlings. And this is in relation to the Gargano classification. Before we launched as a brand, internally, we had a good argument because the reason was Ben had already got this in mind, but we argued internally about, should we go full Gargano or do we just put it as, like this? I would have put pure single rum on the front there, and I can put a link to the Gargano classification. There's a nice thing on the La Maison Velier website. we ended up opting for the more literal translation of what it actually means, and that was due to quite a lot of discussion in house. But what we didn't write on there was gold rum, or something as inane as gold rum, because color isn't a flavor. We can kind of come back to that. So I mean, like, if you dislike any of these, feel free to shout out. You won't offend me particularly. There's all kinds of stuff I've put in my mouth over the years that I really enjoy, and it's nice to kind of get the feedback whether it's been drunk well or not. But this one, I'm happy to see this one. It was it's a nice ABV. It's a nice starting point, I think. And it kind of has got some fruit notes to it, and this is why I think the balance where I'm quite forgiving of rums that have been aged in the UK as well, because actually that kind of like allows them to be more spirit forward, and the oak tends to be a little lighter onto the palate, and it's a little more delicate about it.
Yeah, Sean, did you have any thoughts on this one you want to share?
I liked right off the beginning when we poured it out, it was getting a little bit of like a not quite burnt popcorn type kind of tone, like a neat little like a singed vegetation. A little bit later now, there's like it's really poking a bit more into like syrupy pineapple and maybe even a tiny little bit of Tahitian vanilla. Just a little bit of that perfumey vanilla. It's kind of fun.
I so don't need anyone to do tasting notes when someone can come up with stuff like that on the fly. That's perfect.
So I think you might have mentioned this, and I might have just been kind of like maybe over like not quite getting it all. But are these like single cask, or is this a batch of a few casks?
In the case of this one, would have been a couple, and this one particularly comes to us from a parcel where in order to buy certain whiskies, sometimes you have to agree to buy certain parts. You want this because this is rare whiskey or whatever. Then we've got this for sale, and if you buy this, then you can buy like what you were after, kind of thing. So in the case of this one, this was part of a palette of rums that came to us that had quite a few different. It was basically a palette of 13 rums that were bought. So I ended up a very pleasant morning going down to Atom HQ and picking through this palette of rums, and we got two of the casks were had this marking on it. One of the other ones we actually had was we haven't got it in this particular lineup here, but there was 4 of those 13 casks were just not appropriate at all for boutique-y, and they're actually sitting in bond. We haven't got rid of them just yet, but they really aren't. I can't see them ever being bottled under the boutique-y labeling. And then some were ended up in the I'll put this one because there's our unconfirmed still, because literally we kind of knew about the distillation, we knew where it came from, but we didn't know what still it was. But rule 1 for Atom is it's got to be delicious. Like, if we think it's tasty, then that's enough. That if it tastes shite, then we're not going to put it out there, and that might be subjective to my opinion. But like in the case of this one, when we actually did bottle it, even though we didn't know very much about it, so we didn't know what the cask mark was in it. So we've got some variations in there. I've got I've got one from we got one in Trinidad. It's a TDL Fernandez. We had a couple of barrels of that on the same pallet. And that turned out to be wonderful, a fabulous one. So it was in the end those 13 rums 13 casks that we had to buy in order to get this ridiculous whiskey turned out to be a real bonus, like, because there's some great stuff amongst it. I don't know what the price was, but like, it was cool for me going down and picking through it. And it was a bit of a highlight to kind of understand this.
Did you actually have to buy real barrels, or did you get an ISO container that was the equivalent of those barrels?
This was 13, literally 13 barrels sitting on there. Like, and they kind of, the company we got it from didn't seem to, didn't seem to be quite so zealous of. We've got a scenario where the rum world, I say that I think, there are some companies that are very detailed in their kind of control of. So like if it comes via main rum, they know quite a lot of information about, and it will come through. And when you request, you buy a cask, you request it, you can get that information. Not everyone's quite so zealous, and these parcels of rum have been passed around, and you kind of, when you see on there, you look up the mark was on the cask, and so you look the mark up and go, oh, so Versailles, and you can kind of you get a certain amount of information, and it tasted good, and it gets tested. Obviously, it's nothing dodgy about it or anything like that. So in the case of this, it was a little vague, but the some of it, but we were able to infer enough. We were able to get enough. But sometimes we've ended up with a real kind of almost like a blank situation. And then there's situations where we can't talk about it because of the way it's licensed. But we'll get to that in a moment. So yeah, it was an interesting one, but tasty. Almost conversely, completely the other end of the direction. The second rum for your glass now is the Engenho do Norte from Madeira. And I apologize for anyone who speaks Portuguese. I've massacred foreign languages around the world. I barely speak English, let alone like the chance of speaking Portuguese properly. So I kind of like, they're all very forgiving, and they kind of, you know, when I go to Madeira, they kind of like nod and yeah, that's right. We understand what you're saying, Pete. We get it. Yeah, like, you know, but then when they say it with a little bit more inflection, a little bit more, you know. I was lucky to go to Madeira on a press trip a few years back. You know what? I've been on press trips around the world, and sometimes I get invited on them just as my kind of almost my love for the brand is on the wane kind of thing. It was almost like it was barely worth them taking me out. But the guys, the Madeiran government absolutely now taking me out to Madeira because I have become the unofficial ambassador for Madeira and rum there ever since. It was just at the perfect time. I came back from the trip and going like, I love this. This is fantastic, and that's why the Orizinho bottlings are in the first outrun, simply because of timing and everything else. So in the case of some of the rums, we go direct, and that's so the ones that tend to be almost a little better priced because we've kind of cut out the middleman are there. So the Engenho do Norte is our first agricole rum this evening. The one previous to was a molasses rum. That's like 90% of the market is molasses rums. This one is made from sugarcane juice. It's from the North Distillery. They call it the North Distillery. It's more kind of more out in the
Are they
east.
allowed to use the term agricole, or did they actually put that in their label? Or
so we didn't put it on it because we bought the liquid and we put we brought it to the UK. But actually, Madeira is one of the 6 approved regions that can use the term agricole as recognised by the EU. So the agricole rum is kind of the way when we're talking about in this sense is actually a protected term. But like outside of. Like, there's no reason why anyone outside of the EU can't use the term agricole rum. It's, you know, we for those that care, we would like people like in America who are making rum from, yeah, and you know, I would prefer they didn't use it where it wasn't appropriate. But you know, I think there's little that we can do to prevent. But Martinique, Guyana, Guadeloupe, Marie-Galante, French Guiana, Reunion, and Madeira are the 6 places as under EU recognition have the ability to call their rum agricole rum. Agricole, sorry, and sugarcane. Madeira's had sugarcane since like the 1500s, like prior to, or sorry, late 1400s, prior to it being taken to the Americas. Massive sugar industry there for a long time. It was kind of like it was the white gold of Madeira, which is kind of like the Latin for white gold. I think is where this label brief comes from. Why is there polar bears on there, or white bears? Like Ursa Branca, yeah, for white bears, Ursa, whatever they call for gold. It was like it was one of the lamest jokes, but Adam Wyatt nailed it, I think, with it. You know, in a noisy distillery, would you mishear like, you know, someone saying white gold, white bear? You know, whatever. It is one of the few steam powered, steam crushing, cane crushing machines in still available for making rum. Beautiful location. Madeira is full of quirks. The producer themselves, they start their fermentation at the beginning of the season by using unleavened sort of bread, so that fresh dough, start a fermentation with it, and then they keep that fermentation going throughout the whole of the season. They're crushing cane, they're adding juice, they kind of make rum. They've got these beautiful 3 little sort of copper column stills that produce rum to sort of 72% ABV. Low rectifications are like 15-16 plates or whatever it is in these stills, so low rectification column stills, beautifully charismatic rum, and then they're sticking it into ex Madeira wine casks. The obviously the most people think about when they think about Madeira will think about fortified wine, from Madeira. And quite rightly, because that's the thing that they've been marketing themselves on so very well for such a long time. So I'm going to put some of this in my mouth because I find this particularly gorgeous.
When did the rum industry start to take off, Peter?
So I've enjoyed many times traveling to Portugal and to Madeira, not yet to Brazil, but I find there's a very healthy kind of fuck you from the average person in Madeira as far as like the government control. They like to make their own booze. They like to be in control of their own booze. Now the government say they've only really been making rum for a relatively short space of time in Madeira. However, if you go to Madeira and you know that they've had access to sugarcane since the 1400s, and the byproduct of sugar production is molasses, and this is something that ferments very readily, and cane. And then, even if you just know the Madeiran people in general, I find it very unlikely to believe they haven't been making rum since the 1500s. They've just been calling it, for a lot of, I mean, they've been calling it aguardiente de cana, and this is the problem the Madeiran government has, is that it's not only that they're trying to boost exports and rum sales in Madeira, but they're actually trying to educate their own market to stop the people in Madeira calling it aguardiente, like firewater. Yeah, they actually want them to call it rum. 95% of rum in Madeira is drunk unaged in poncha. It's like that. It's kind of like that. And poncha is their equivalent of a daiquiri, the rum, lime, and sugar trinity that we get all around the world.
That's interesting. I didn't know that aguardiente, like that was essentially just unaged rum. And I'll be honest, prior to when we got these bottlings from the Boutique-y Whiskey Rum Company, I had no idea that they were making rum in Portugal, because I've not really seen any before.
Well, this is it. I will admit, so I'm going to be a bit careful here. It's a bit like I'm going to be a bit gung ho pouring these rums now down my throat, but I haven't got to work tomorrow, so what?
For both of us.
Yeah, I'm doing it for you, mate. I'm doing it for you. No, it's exactly that thing. So I had friends in the UK that a lady called Carla, who's like, she's based out in Manchester. She gave us a little selection boxes of rums, and so I kind of also I've got to put into this that everything we're talking about this is kind of also about my journey in rum. And so like my first tastings of like an unaged agricole rum weren't very cool. I didn't enjoy it. I think my palate wasn't ready for it. I didn't understand what it was that we were going to kind of get in at the time. When I tried the sample of, it was actually the Calita Distillery, she gave it, I was like, my God, this is horrible. And this was when I wasn't, this is ages and ages ago, when I wasn't so experienced in agricole rum, sugarcane juice rums. And when we talk about agricole rum, we're sort of referring to the white, really, because that's kind of the purest form of. I thought it was a bit rough around the edges. I didn't really get it. I wasn't sure the rest of it. So I ended up going on this press trip, and then it kind of actually nailed down the differences in production style. And I tried a lot more. And by that point, I was a lot more, my palate was ready for white rum in a way. On the island, so sugarcane grows just like literally everywhere. Every stick of cane on the island is cut by hand, because Madeira is pretty much like mountainous. There's a rock rising up out of the Atlantic Ocean. None of the fields are big enough or flat enough to have mechanical harvesting. So it is very much a family driven affair. So people are growing are growing this in family owned plots. It's there's no centralized government controlled farms or anything like that. These are every stick of cane is grown on family owned plots of land. There was a question I saw, something about agricole. Let me just, between rum and rum.
What is the difference between rum and RHUM?
So in the case of this, I mean, so RHUM is the French spelling for rum, and we tend to associate rum with rum agricole in that spelling. Madeira spells their rum, their RUM. They don't spell it with an H. And so this is kind of like where they're making an agricole rum, but agricole it's made using the term agricole in the modern era. We're talking about rums made from fresh sugarcane juice, from actually directly from sugarcane rather than from molasses. But the use of RUM or RHUM, that's very much down to the people, the market.
It's kind of become a shorthand, actually. I mean, most people,
really
even
has.
though there's like everybody and his dog uses the spelling with the H, it's almost globally, from my experience, it's almost become a shorthand for people saying, oh yeah, this has just been made from cane juice, whether or not it's from a French island or not. I mean, it could be from Australia or elsewhere in South America and made that way. And it's just, okay, let's just use the H.
And and that's the thing. And this idea of the term agricole rum, like agricole rums being rums made from sugarcane juice, and you kind of like, and I kind of like, so whilst I want to be that guy who uses the protected term in the correct terminology, there is also that ease of our catch-all that, like, when we talk about agricole, we're talking about rums made from sugarcane juice, and like the rum world's complicated enough at times, and sometimes we can take a very simplistic step that kind of lumps all these things together. Trouble is, if you say that from someone from Martinique, and they're talking about a sugarcane juice rum from Australia, the person from Martinique's going to get a bit sniffy, going like, it's not agricole rum, because it's a protected term.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have, I feel, and there's all manner of things we've yet to come to yet, like from a colonialist point of view in the rum world, but I feel like that if terms are earned, then they should be protected accordingly. And so, they are. We didn't write Agricola de Madeira on this. I said it earlier on. The reason we didn't write rum Agricola de Madeira on it is because we bottled it in the UK, and so invariably the use of the term sort of trickles off once it starts, when the bulk liquid's taken out. There is nothing about this particular rum that's been modified or any other kind of way. If we'd taken the brave move like bottling companies like Velier do to ship glass to Madeira, we could have got the people at the distillery maybe to bottle it themselves, and then we could have had the full Agricola de Madeira terminology on the bottle, and it would have been a step further. But that's bottling companies. That would be a brave move to do that. So if I had my own, I'd definitely be doing it. But we haven't got it. This is a sugarcane juice rum. So rum made from crushed sugarcane juice. If you go to the distillery, if you do go to Madeira, this is the easiest one to visit in terms of the most friendly access to the facilities. They're very good at promoting what they do. There's a little bit of something to be said. They are the biggest, I imagine, in terms of volume. They're certainly the biggest in terms of aged stocks laying down. The Madeira government a few years back, when they went for when they decided that they wanted to promote all aspects of, they looked at what they were producing. They realized this rum thing was there. They decided first step was to get the geographic indication in place, so it had a protection in the EU. And then they kind of decided, right, we need to start incentivizing our producers to start laying down aged rum, because white rum was going to be it was going to be a tougher thing. So there's tax breaks in the Madeira to incentivize the producers to lay down rum for aging. Aged rum is more of an exportable commodity. So yeah, the Madeira government's making a big push to start talking about their rums on the global stage, but as I say, part of their education thing is to do it for internally. The Madeiran IFBAM, the institute that sort of look after Madeira rum, anything that's got Madeira rum written on a label has been past a tasting panel of people of experts in the country, and they've tasted it and you're like, do we think it's worthy of being called agricole rum, Madeiran rum? And if you don't get sign off from the board, then you can't use it, you can't market it. I mean, it's not to say you can't sell it, but you can't call it a Madeiran agricole rum. And I think this is a wonderful bit of protection for a category that actually I would love to see in other places. The rum world is so developed and so in some places there was so far in sort of there's no chance of that. There's no we've got no chance of all the producers in Barbados being subject to a tasting panel that says, okay, this is guaranteed.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen.
Can you imagine? And the same with Guyana's different. There's only one big producer in Guyana, but like places where there's multiples, like the idea of everyone getting together and being subject to a tasting panel. But in Madeira, because of the time they made push for the GI, they got together. Yeah, there is a protection, and I find this really very nice. It does kind of lead to some other conversations. I've got a producer a bottle just behind me. Like the first time he submitted it, it failed the test for being Madeira, and he was going to do a whole marketing campaign where he was going to go like, about you could buy a bottle of something that is not, that failed the test or something for the tasting panel. In the end, he didn't. I'm glad he didn't. But like this idea of protection is really, really cool. I could get very gushy about Madeira and rum, and we need to kind of move on a little bit. But if you get the opportunity to try Orizinho, for example, which is the white rum that we have in the range, please take it. It is a really, really very, very cool.
Peter,
Yeah.
really quickly before we move on, do you want to tell us a little bit about the label and what the storyline is?
Yeah.
Why
So
are
it's
there polar bears on a Madeira rum label?
Yeah. So I haven't got the word in front of me, but so this one is if you arrive at it, this is very much a kind of an artist's impression of, you can't stand in the distillery, look out the window and see the rest of it there, but when you're on the island of Madeira, it has got it's a very iconic building, very like, as you approach, you see this thing. It's tucked right out by the ocean on sort of on the east coast, northeast coast of Madeira. And same, they get some weather in Madeira. It's beautiful place to, obviously good enough to grow sugarcane, but it also gets some weather. They have these steam powered crushing machines for crushing the cane. They have one that has to go 3 phases. They just don't have enough steam capacity to drive all the machines. But the Latin name for white gold is very close to the Latin name for white bear. And a noisy distillery. Maybe the joke is you can't, someone's sort about white gold, maybe you miss here as a white bear. I will also say, in a slightly, it sounds slightly gay to say it, but like the Madeiran guys that are operating the distillery are huge bears of men anyway. It's a very macho kind of country. The people that are operating the machinery and lugging the cane around are huge guys. Everyone in the distillery wears these black t-shirts with Branca written on them, because Branca is the main brand of the distillery. It's this beautiful, it's a fantastic brand, but like very ubiquitous. And as I say, they got the copper collar stills on there. So it was kind of like, this was Adam's label. He was like, a little simple little pun, but very evocative. If you go to the distillery, you'll recognize that label immediately. It's kind of like, it's one of the place. So yeah, this one was an outrun. Actually, I came back from a trip and I said, like, is there any chance we could get some barrel samples? Maybe we could buy a barrel. They gave me 3 samples, 3 different barrels. I got them back to the UK, chatting with the purchasing guy, and they weren't sufficiently different from each other to make one stand out over the other. And I just go to Toby, our purchasing guy, and go, should we just buy all 3? Because like they're lovely. And he goes, yeah. So we bought all 3 and vatted 3 casks together. So this one's actually quite a large outrun, nearly 1,400 bottles, because we've just vatted them together. And the ABV 48.8, they've been cast at 50% ABV. And because of the sort of reasonable high humidity, they lose a little bit of alcohol there. And but we added a little controlled dilution to make sure that the label adds up to the bottle and everything else. So we didn't choose a low ABV accordingly. They just, in Madeira, they just cask at 50 generally. It just is their thing. So most of what they produce is consumed unaged. So the thing about Madeira is that, for me, Madeira is the place to watch right now, because it's reasonably developed, but like they're kind of getting going. I can't wait to follow them as a producing country for the next 5, 10, 25 years, however long I'm on God's earth, because I think they're going to get so much better at aging. I think this is lovely. I mean, this is lovely. They're going to get better and better and better at it. There's going to be some I'll do that question. It's one to watch, basically, and so I'm very happy we have, like, we've in the Boutique-y Rum range, we've got Engenho de Norte, we've got Engenho Nova de Madeira, and Orizinho. So I've got 3 of the 4 as was. Calita Distillery I'm probably not going to get just because of the way they operate, and then there's a little distillery, Altavina, that's just opened up. So you can see a lot more Madeira rums coming from Boutique-y Rum, and that's entirely down to me. I love Madeira and Agricole all the time. I'm associated with a company. I'm going to keep sticking it in there whether you want it or not. So it's kind of like, like, I don't know whether you had it in the way you are, but like, when you're a kid, if you're caught with a cigarette by your dad, like your dad makes you smoke the entire packet to try and put you off. Like, this is different. Like, similar, different. I'm gonna, like, if you don't like Agricole, tough. if you're drinking with me, you're going to end up drinking it, and you're going to drink it until you like it. You know, I'm not going to give up on this one. My first steps in agricole rum were pretty poor, but since then, I just love it. Once you're down the rabbit hole of agricole, there's no way coming out. This is a very safe, easy drinking way, though. But for me, the cane juice is there. The cane juice rum, which is very vibrant, but the time in Madeira wine casks just adds a beautiful, soft, fruity note. Very approachable, very easy, and very affordable. My God, I've been talking way too long. 45 minutes. Right, come on. Right, let's push on. Otherwise, we're never going to be here all night. I'm never going to get there.
Peter, while you're pouring that rum, one question that came up earlier that wasn't answered. Do you work directly with any rum distilleries, or do you have to go through brokers to get casks?
No, I'd say, so apologies if I'm moving a little bit, rabbiting a bit too quick. In the case of this, we will go direct. If we can go direct, we will. There's lots of benefits to going direct. One is that invariably you get the best price for liquid. But the flip side of that is the cost of logistics can be excessive. When we bought this, we were still, the UK hadn't done the stupidness of Brexit. But it will be more obvious when we come to one a little bit later on. So if we can, we will, and I will continue to push for it. So not everything we've got has come to us via Main Rum. And we need points of difference against other independent bottlers, because there are lots of indies out there that just do the basic. They go like, okay, we've got past this, we call it by the country, we won't even call it by distillery, and we'll release it at a very safe ABV. And these are all right. They tend to be in pretty bowls. They look nice and they're good for gifting. But in terms of the rum world, I hold Vellier as being like the kind of like their dependent bottling. I hold them as the gold standard. Luca, by weight of the amount of education and things he's done in the rum world, has earned that. But I want us to be as close to going direct as possible, and that's my goal. It's not always easy, and it's getting more difficult, especially in the modern era with the cost of logistics and everything. But this is where we're at. So we have basically a number of. To sort of reiterate, the ones actually in the UK that are the best price tend to be the ones that we've gone direct, because there's not another pair of hands making a margin. I must admit, I haven't looked at the pricing for the Canadian market. That's another, that's something else I didn't look. I haven't got anything to put booze against either, so I don't know, I reckon. Doug, the question about producing location, we'll come back to that one. So rum number 3, otherwise we are going to be here all night, is the blended rum. This one was I'm really glad you put it in there, because this is a little quirky in a tasting. I didn't want to lead with it, even though it's like the lowest ABV in the thing. I don't know what people's palates are like when it comes to drinking agricole rum, but Signature Blend number 1 is my blend. This is the one that I've had the most input on. So everything else is limited edition. It might be one cask, or it might be a couple of casks. Might be a large out rum, but it's limited liquid. When it's gone, it's gone. Signature Blend number 1 was created along with its partner, Signature Blend number 2, to be permanent pouring liquid in the range. So replaceable. We can always get it at $34.99. Seems like a pretty decent price for you guys as well. So my first opportunities is for blending that end up in a commercial sense, and I kind of I was asked by Atom to come up with a white and a dark rum, which of course I rail against a little bit, because I don't do white rum and I don't do dark rum, because that doesn't make any sense. But there was no brief to this whatsoever. No brief. Like, Pete, come up with a couple of rums. There wasn't a guide price. There wasn't a style or anything like that. And it turns out that after I come up with the blends, they didn't even bother saying, "Oh no, we don't want to seed it in the market. We don't want to get feedback. No, we just run with it." So this one caused me to panic quite a lot, because a lot of money had been spent, based on my opinion and the shared opinion of a few friends locally. But Signature Blend number 1, my daiquiri rum. This is one that whilst we can enjoy drinking these together, drinking it neat, but it was designed to be a rum that you're going to make in daiquiris, using daiquiris. And it is a blend of predominantly unaged rums. So this makes me happy in lots of respects, because the rums that go into this are like 95% of them are unaged. And this is a very rich, flavoursome rum. You know, there's a lot of power in this rum, and there is approximately 5% of aged rum in it. And the aged rum is important because it gives it a little sweetness and backbone that just kind of the unaged blend didn't have. And also the little bit of color, there's a little bit of pale gold to it, if you've got something you can see in your glass. So think of it as a 50-50 blend of unaged agricole rum from Martinique, of which the source, because this comes to us via via E&A Shear in Amsterdam. There are the people who work with to put this blend together. So my guess is it's St. James, because I can't imagine who else has got the volume to sell unaged bulk agricole. And then Worthy Park.
Maybe?
Well, that's Guadeloupe rather than Martinique, but it is definitely. Yeah. But it's Worthy Park is the white pot still rum component of this.
Mm-hmm. Doug's asking here, how long are the components married together?
So we buy it. This is one of the benefits of working with E&A Shear, is that you buy from them, and so they're the suppliers of a finished blend, but they supply at not still strength, but at full proof. So you get it, and this would be shipped in the 60+% ABV kind of bulk range. Slightly better question would be like, how long does it have between us dropping it to bottle strength and then it going out? Well, not as long, depends. IBC of this stuff could turn up, like several thousand litres of this can turn up. It could be dropped ABV wise kind of fairly quickly, you know, allowed to settle a little bit and then bottled. When these first launched, I share a little bit of the insights into my insecurities, but like when Atom have just spent lots of money throwing this into market, and it went from the bottling line straight to the launch party, like virtually by courier, and it was a bit of a panic. And whilst the Signature Blend number 1 was fine, like that was okay, Signature Blend number 2, when it turned up, I could tell was struggling with bottle shock. Like, I mean, like I'm trying it because I know what it tasted like neat beforehand, and then like everyone else is going, "Oh, this is fantastic!" And I was panicking because I knew that it was like, this is not as good as it could be, and it definitely recovered in bottle. But the blend has transport time to marry together, and then it sits on the ground. As it is now that we're producing enough or selling enough of this that actually it's regular shipments from Amsterdam, so it's not had like lots and lots of time to come together, but when we're shipping it around the world, it then has months in bottle, so then also to continue to integrate. So it works well enough for me. Mm-hmm. You get a little variation batch to batch, but only, like, I mean, you know, I notice it batch to batch, but I don't think other folks would do. I'm very, very sensitive to this one.
Peter, that story you told me or told us about, from the bottling line couriered to your event. I mean, to be fair, and I love the company, but it seems like classic Adam Brands, like small company, always trying to do more than they physically can, which I can empathize with from the standpoint of my own business. And it's anyway, I love that hustle. So
it's the thing, you know. I honestly, I think it's really cool. And I mean, I say by putting Signature Blend number 1 where we are now in the range, now your palate's used to alcohol. We've had some higher proof stuff. It's a lot easier to drink. And honestly, I think there's a beautiful sweetness to this. And it was just that small amount of, the reason it would make more sense for them to put a 3-year-old age mark in it. It's a 3-year-old pot still aged rum from Worthy Park, would have been made more sense. But the reason it's 4% is because part of the development program, we were kind of going through trying the different blends that had turned up. And I'd wandered down into my hallway and I got some Rum Bar Gold, which is a 4-year-old pot still from Worthy Park. And I go like, and we were tried a few different percentages, and I come back and go like, that works really well. And then when they came back, they go like, oh, we put some 4-year-old aged in it. It's like, wow, okay, that was very specific, and a 3-year-old would have been fine. But it does bring that sort of softer note to it. If I don't know how big your sample sizes are, if you buy a bottle, make daiquiris with it. It's perfect. I'll take the Pepsi challenge. Like I work with a Barbadian producer that came up with Veritas. There might be some similarities in this idea of a duality, kind of Barbados and Jamaican in their case. For me, yeah, but there's a brand called Banks Rum that Jim Meehan developed, and he talked about when he was developing this ultimate blended rum for him, he spent years developing it, and it's got like 5 different marks or whatever in it, and he was trying to balance them out for the ultimate thing. That sounded like complete madness. Like the idea of being like subjecting years of your life to your pursuit of the ultimate daiquiri blend, but for your mouth rather than in general. I got to this within 2 iterations. I got to this. I was like, no, I think that's great. Let's get it out on the market and see what happens. Slightly gung-ho. I thought they were actually going to test it in market a bit before they released it, but not even that straight into. So we went straight into it. It has sold very well since. And if I could tell you what the staff price for buying this is, you understand why I get through lots of it. Atom staff price is something to behold. But
there you go. Well, I mean, to be honest, I think it's incredibly interesting. And as much as I like the rums that preceded it, to me, it probably has the most balance and elegance to it of the rums we've had so far. So, Sean, I'm curious about your thoughts on this.
My main experience has been a little bit more kind of like daiquiri centric, so which is just absolutely excellent. The price point on it has always just been like as soon as it came in, we were really excited about the price point, and also just like it was. I don't think we get a lot of like blends like this. So seeing something like that where it's like Jamaica meets like something like Martinique, it was really, I don't know. It was that, and then of course the label is just absolutely beautiful too. Like it really kind of catches the eye, and everything about it was like, I don't know. Both Eli and I were just like we were mad about it. It was great.
Yeah. No, it's that idea of duality. I kind of like, it's about taking something, and I still want to taste it now. I know my palate's not quite there because of the cold, but the kind of like the sort of the vegetal, fruity, agricole notes that you get from Martinique, along with the tropical fruits, kind of, they felt like very harmonious kind of liquids to bring together. And so we, in the case of labeling on this one, Tinge Blend #1, bright grass is because like the brand manager at the time was like, she wanted something that would a kind of a tag to go with it. And then we just call it blended rum because that's just what it is. It's the product of Jamaica and Martinique. Originally, I have to say that this was going to release at 47%, but just before we launched, they got cold feet and dropped it to 42 for price reasons. But I have to say it's better at 47%, and Singe Blend 2 is definitely better at 42%, 47%. But we might get there. Like now it's selling well enough. We might kind of, maybe we'll just up the price, but up the ABV. But the idea for the label, if you didn't see it when it flashed by, again, that idea of duality. And someone said like we want a light rum, a white rum kind of thing. So this is a daytime setting. The dark rum we've got is a nighttime setting, but again with a duality. But that kind of like the kind of quirkiness of the two rums together, and the white snake of Martinique and the purple Amazon lemony of the lignum vitae. Flowers on there, Jamaica. So it's kind of like the quirky, and it's kind of like, it's about bringing those things together. So it's not the perfect rum bottle to be using in a bar sense, but it was developed with bars in mind. Really, that was where their goal was. In the UK, we have bars that are not always tied to retailers like to Bacardi or whatever, or pouring deals, and there are ones that have a little bit more freedom. So we felt like we would better sell this rum into places that had a little bit more freedom they could afford a slightly more expensive liquid, and they were more flavor driven in their profile. And then not long after we launched, of course, then COVID and all the rest of it kind of happened, and a lot's happened in the booze world in the last couple of years. But we sell a lot of this into a lot of this goes for export. Like it was one of those ones, once the export markets realized about the price point and the usability of it, just the sales have gone up massively. So it does make me kind of happy.
It rates against the Probitas or Veritas or whatever you call it that Foursquare puts out, or even the Plantation 3-Star, which are like the two main daiquiri makers in the States in particular. How do you think it rates against those two?
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, this is interesting because without Plantation 3-Stars coming to the market, I don't think anyone would have even thought about the idea of making a blend that was particularly daiquiri orientated. And Plantation 3-Stars, and it's after midnight here in the UK, so I can be as honest as I want to be. But it was when it launched, it was groundbreaking. I don't find it particularly groundbreaking these days. I find it smells nice, but it doesn't taste amazing. But without that kind of idea of getting into the market, like for something specifically, Veritas Probitas is a kind of expensive, kind of cool, but you know, it's a good blend. You know, I think there's potential there. We're not the only ones doing it. I back my own blend. I like this one. This is a favorite. I've drunk lots and lots of it. So hopefully you enjoy it. But if you do buy a bowl, make a daiquiri with it. Don't make it too sweet. All daiquiris die when you over sweeten it. Keep it slightly on the tart side.
Yeah. Well,
I'd really like to try it at 47. Honestly, I think you kind of be doing the market a favor by doing that. Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, when we dropped it from 47 to 42, I didn't really notice the difference. I noticed the difference on the Signature Blend number 2 more so.
Okay.
But on 1, it was just, it's so rich. There's so much flavor in that liquid anyway, that actually the ABV was less important in this case. It still carried, but like, you know, maybe there'll be some distillers versions later on, or whatever. We'll find a way of sneak out. If I've got a chance to bring the ABV up, believe me, I'm going to take it. Like I like, because I'm less driven on the idea of yeah, it's going to become more expensive because of duty and all the rest of it. But like, it'd be better. Drink less, drink better. Oh my god, it's kind of like, you know.
Yeah, and just a quick note on your comment about daiquiris. There's a reason why Hemingway got diabetes. The daiquiris he was drinking were way too sweet. But on that note, we should probably chug on to the, I'm already nosing at the Jamaica batch too, which has got a cool nose to it. And I mean, there's something quintessentially Jamaican about this too.
You absolutely cannot miss this one. So this one is this one was released before I had the ability to kind of put on there the additional note that was kind of important about the casks and things on it. The Atom have this thing where they don't want the labels to be too cluttered. These already show far more information than they do on the equivalent whiskies. And they still have got a lot of information that could be shown on the label that isn't shown. This one is came to us as a quite a large outrun again, which was vatted together of casks, and I can't say where they came from. They didn't come from Main Rum. It was basically a 3-year-old Worthy Park rum, pot still aged rum in bourbon cask, in ex-bourbon cask in Jamaica. And it was shipped to the UK, and then it was aged for a further 3 years in ex-Sauterne wine cask. And there was something about that combination of flavor profiles that just worked together so very, very well. The kind of, again, that quintessential kind of like Worthy Park. I mean, I nose on this, and it could really only come from one distillery in Jamaica, I think. I say that kind of guardedly, but the Sauterne cask works beautifully with it, and it just come out. I mean, it's like, again, the ABV, we couldn't do much about it. When it was recast, it was already like been recast at a lower ABV. So I couldn't present it any higher. But what it did, the price point was amazing for us. It was like, you know, and again, it took a little while to kind of get it out there, but we went from sitting on lots of barrels to sitting on none. It's all sold out, like, there it was, gone, you know. Once people knew about it, it was that combination, that perfect storm of ABV and price, and just an accessibility as well. It's one of these ones where I do see folks get a bit scared when they see 60% ABV on a bottle label, but like in the 50s, they're not so bad. And it's harmonious. Now, Secret Distillery, number 1, because we're not licensed to use the name Worthy Park, for all the right reasons. Yeah, when a producer protects their name or trademarks their name or whatever, they're doing it for the right reason. They're trying to sell a rum under their own branded ones. They want to build it. They want other people trading on their name. San has told me on several occasions that it's all right to mention it. I just can't use it in written promotion, so we can't write it on the bottle, can't write it down as it's such on marketing materials, but we can talk about it. I mean, he's as proud of this liquid getting out there as anyone, you know. Anything that gets the word out about Worthy Park. On a personal level, I would love to be able to write Worthy Park on there, and maybe for later batches, you know, of Secret Distillery number 1, maybe we'll approach and see if we can get the ability to use the name. At the moment, I'm not so fussed because
well, I think it's actually kind of to its benefit, because that gets everybody really curious, like the SMWS, you know, numerical ratings. It kind of gets people curious as to what it is, and they do more research than less. So I think it's actually a good selling point. So
we've got, yeah, I mean, like this wasn't one of my label designs, but it was kind of, again, it kind of hints at the field to bottle kind of approach. that Worthy Park are famous for. You know, the field to bottle producers are rare in this world, and whilst this one came out and was matured in the UK before it was bottled, you know, no less important. But the label's about let me pull it up just to kind of, again, I don't know where Ben came up with the actual the things for this, but you know, Worthy Park being a field to bottle, the biggest sphere is like, this is a graphical output, a graphical sort of representation of the outputs of Worthy Park. And given that this was back in a few years ago, probably possibly not quite up to date, but the biggest sphere, huge amount of land that it takes to make the one to the left, the amount of unrefined sugar they make, the one on the right, the amount of molasses that results from sugar production. The green one is actually meant to be a clear sphere, but it's on a green background, obviously, the amount of white rum, and then the amount of aged rum. So it's kind of like that is the idea of this idea of scale of that it takes to make rum. You know, you need lots of land to end up with relatively small thing. And so each label, when it comes out, this is batch 2. Batch 1 was, you know, the original. Batch 2, a little tweak to the label, maybe a little hedgerow detail or whatever it is like that. You know, they kind of, every batch has a new little detail added to it. But Secret Distillery was the format they used from Boutique-y Whisky. They adopted it straight away for rum. And so we're up to Secret Distillery number 9, which is as yet unreleased. Secret Distillery number 7 was the Barbados one that came out not long ago, that we had. You know, so we're using it because we're not allowed to use the name, but I'd say, but it creates it. I think most people, when they kind of, if you know Jamaica, when you nose on it, you go like, you know where it came from straight away. But it's just a harmonious balance, and it was like, so like, you know, it's a WPL Jamaica mark before it went into Sauterne cast. But once somebody else has recast it, the idea of that you know, it isn't their rum anymore. It's been recast. It's changed. It's not, you know. And so this is where I kind of like I walk a very fine line between, you know, I work with a brand that's all about authenticity, and it's only a rum if it's about producer distillery. And as an indie, it's kind of tricky at times to kind of back both. But this is where we go like, you know what, Jamaican rum. It's not doctored, it's not sweetened or anything like that. We know that's the case. We trust the source, didn't bug around with it. We tested it. We haven't done anything with it. I think it's delicious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got a really cool palate. I'm really enjoying this one. And it is like, it's, to me, and I'm not sure that this is even the correct descriptor, but to me, there's almost this rubberiness to it on the palate, on the nose and palate, that almost every Jamaican rum seems to have. And that's got to be something to do with the terroir of the island or something, because there's got to be some impact there that Appleton seems to have, and, you know, Long Pond and other rums seem to have as well too.
Just they love their pot still. Yeah, and that's you know, all praise to Jamaica. They love the pot stills. They've never, I mean, like, it was the Appleton introduced the column into the blend, but everyone else is still running around with a Clarendon on the side. Yeah, they're pot still only, and I think that's just wonderful. You know, honestly, it's and long way that's nice. I'm very lucky to last weekend to spend some time with Zan at Worthy Park. Did a masterclass, and so they're making cane juice rum. I didn't realize for the last 2 years they've been making cane juice rum, fresh, and so I tried a fresh rum and an aged rum. Like, they're a producer. I mean, they've been like, they've got their 17-year-old release, you know, the actual distillery bottling. You know, again, this is one of these ones where, like, we're kind of lucky, you know. You know, none of us are going to. I wish I was about in the 1600s when Barbados was hitting its straps, and Jamaica and places like that. And I wish I'd been following it for a long time. And obviously, we can't. But the world of rum, there's still some really cool shit that's happening now, where companies are developing now. Madeira, I say that, yeah, places like Worthy Park, you know, there's some good stuff happening right now that we can, if we're following the industry, we can follow it, and we can see how they develop. And it's nice to, it's like watching your kid grow up, you know. It's not that I was there when Worthy Park relaunched. That was just before I got into rum. But like, kind of like, yeah, they've not been going very long in this grand sense, and they're making some amazing stuff, and it's going to get better. And it's like, this is fantastic. It's very exciting. You know, it really is very exciting. It's inspiring for me. So, yeah, we're kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're picking up pace now and catching up. I'll be in bed before 2 o'clock.
Sean, yeah, Sean, any comments on that one? I get some. there's something that reminds me of like these German cookies I used to get from a deli that had like chocolate and almonds and some kind of a jammy fruit in them. But I am curious about your thoughts on this one.
I don't think that you could ever, well, I don't know, I could be wrong, but like I don't know if you could ever blind Sauterne cask with something like that, but I do think there's a little bit of that kind of syrupy white vignousness like on the palate, maybe towards the finish. I mean, admittedly, I'm still kind of early into my full journey into rum, so there's really only I can never really nail down anything too particular. But I mean, there's always like the big pineapple tones for the ester heavy rums, especially most of Jamaica. It's quite nice. I think I don't know. I think like bottle at 51, it displays a little bit of a sweetness. I think if it went up too high, I don't know. I mean, it'd be fine. I don't mind it, but I don't know. I think it's pretty good where it is.
It would have been lovely to have had it a little higher, I think. I always like the idea of a rum coming to you and then you can dilute it if you want to, rather than it already being diluted before you get it. It's very difficult to take the water out of a rum. Very easy to add it, but in the case of this, no, that those pineapple notes you're talking about, that the things that you kind of think the tropical fruits you think of Worthy Park, then as kind of benefit with this little nuttiness that I kind of get from the Sauterne. I honestly, I find it very harmonious. If you happen to find a batch one, Secret Distillery #1, which is older at 9 years, they're all ex-bourbon cask. Batch 3 is the same. They're a really nice one to have them side by side in the glass because you get that where the Sauterne kind of comes from and adds to it. But it's one of those ones where it's just really harmonious for me. It just worked really well, and we had access to it, and damn, like, and so what we bottled all of it. And it sat for a little bit before people realised what we got, and then all of a sudden our warehouse just emptied of this. So I was kind of less scrabbling around trying to buy myself a bottle as a backup, like go shit, it's all gone. Damn it. Like you can, it's weird. I have access to the stock figures and they get like, okay, it'll be all right. It won't sell out too quick. And then like when we got coming up, it's like, oh fuck, it's all gone. Shit. Now I was resorting to buy a bottle from Harvey Nichols on one that's coming up. Anyway, like, right, come on. I'm sorry to lose Doug. He had to go family meal by the sound of it. So that's a shame. But it sounds like it's kind of cool. Let's jump to the CACD, which is hilarious in the fact that someone on a typo on an email kind of got the acronym ran the wrong way. It should be CADC, and yet that one survived. It's going to be an everlasting acronym cock up. You know what? I don't care either. Don't worry, mate. It's going to become a continual point of hilarity moving on. Peter, this one I remember.
Peter, you're talking to a business that has made more than its share of hilariously embarrassing typos. So I think embracing it is always the best path.
Too late now. I'm certainly not going to change it. Not like when we're like several batches in, we're not going to change it. With like we'll just run with it. Makes for an easy. Honestly, I kind of I fret over a few things, but like fretting over that, don't worry. We're not the only one to have done it as well. Someone I can guarantee that somebody supplied a bunch. And it just like there's other people that use this in this acronym this way round. It should be CADC, but whatever. It's an acronym on a label anyway. But yeah, I know this one. I know this one provoked a little reaction from Lance, and I'm not going to ask him to kind of elaborate on it like right this second. Feel free to comment if he wants to, because of the content on the label. We were like when we released this one, actually, and by all means, obviously, have a little taster on it. We need just to backtrack a little bit. I kind of, as much from a geeky kind of rum point of view as wanting like agricoles or pot stills or whatever like that, we need in the range to have something that's approachable for folks taking their steps beyond mainstream brands. And so having lighter styles of rum are really important to us. And I've learned this since I've been dealing with a company. We had a Panama one and like our Belize one sold out really, really quickly. Not everyone is drinking car strength like pot still rums. Some people want something a little lighter, and it depends on also on the markets we're selling into. Having a Venezuela one in the range was really good because people associate Venezuela. They think about Diplomatico, and of course we're putting a rum out there that's unsweetened, and so getting bottlings from Venezuela that aren't sweetened is actually quite
Well,
nice.
this is from the Santa Teresa boys, isn't it?
This one, well, it's not. Sorry, I'm really just.
Allegedly.
No, it's not. It's not Santa Teresa. There are a few distilleries in Venezuela. So I'm just looking through it.
Yeah,
So
no. There's Volmer that does the Santa Teresa, and then there's this other one that does the diplomatic. Or I just couldn't remember which one CADC was.
So I've got like my. I want to say it properly. There we go. Right. So it is Corporation Alcohols del Caribe. Like you say, I've insulted people all around the world. The way I spell and stuff. Distillery making and stuff. So so a lighter style. The first one we released had a spot of French oak as part of its maturation cycle, and was just lovely. And then this one is all ex-bourbon cask in its maturation. This one's the one where I think actually the ABV is almost a little too high for general release. This could have been a little lower, but sometimes we kind of put it out at 60 and kind of run out there. We were when we talk about the reason I kind of I mentioned Lance in this one because he has a very a valid comment on it. He can share his view in a moment if he fancies, but it was kind of like we Venezuela, when we were bottling batch 1, was going through that period of time where they were still struggling, where it was very newsworthy, where the people were struggling, the rampant inflation and stuff, and I didn't want anything jokey about the country or anything like that. It was kind of like I wanted to be entirely respectful, and we were sort of between the brand manager and I, we were chatting about it and going like, well, we should play up on the sort of geography of, and people were looking, and we were like, our man Josh Stubbs, who works in MPD, is the gentleman on the label on this one. And originally the idea was like, well, we could we're flying to Venezuela, like you're sort of flying over the national parks kind of thing, or whatever you want to call it, the land. And so they got these very sort of like iconic kind of geography, and the particular one in this case was like, there was a place, was it the Mount Romana? So it was kind of like a place that had turned up in the Lost World, Conan Doyle's Lost World. So that's why there's kind of like a pterodactyl flying around there. And the original picture actually was literally just that. It looked a bit like a slab of cake sitting there with the thing flying around it. And at the last minute, I go like, can we just frame this? And so we put like an airplane window around the shot and put Josh in there. And all of a sudden, it went from being a very, very boring image to one of the nicest on the eye kind of images there is, I think, in the range. It's just like a beautiful kind of like evocative flying somewhere kind of thing. And I'm not trying to make a claim that this is Venezuelan or Guyanan or whatever, or ownership of a piece of jungle. But it just kind of, the idea was to search for something that wasn't going to be rude or offensive to Venezuela as a point of origin. Just be evocative, really, of travel and exploration. Exploration is the one key word that runs through everything that I kind of like when we're sort of marketing rum. Is I want people to explore rum, and how you kind of come up with it is how you convey that message. We just end up with that. It wasn't.
Peter, are you suggesting that maybe you didn't want to get political with the label? Is that
well, it's sort of who might claim the land is something that
there's a huge border controversy between Guyana and Venezuela, where Venezuela thinks 2/3 of Guyana is actually theirs, and Guyana says "fuck you." And Mount Roraima, which is that mountain that you see on the label, is right smack bang on the border, half and half in each country. So as a loyal Guyanese, I said, yeah, no, that's not Venezuela, that's Guyana. So what are you doing? So that's the nub of the controversy. There's lots more to it than that, but that's really it. But no, it's not a big deal in the sense that I make it out to be. It's just that, I kind of grew up with this stuff. So
Lance,
exactly.
Lance, I'm on your team. So I say go Guyana.
Same here. Thank you.
You know what? You can claim it. It's fine. It's okay. This is. Like, without getting kind of weird, but there's a lot more to the world in general than just, and so someone sitting there, and so it wasn't done with any kind of we're not trying to be provocative or whatever. God, that's the part of the problem we have. Like, we don't want to be, but so it's not a political statement being made. We wanted something. We could have chosen somewhere else. Maybe we should have chosen somewhere else. But there it is. This one is. This is a very. I don't know. Sometimes I kind of like depends. At the moment, I find a lot of oak in this one. And because my palate, I can tell I haven't got everything on my palate. It kind of like it's showing not nicely this evening as it has done previously. Lots of cocoa and there's bitter coffee kind of in there and all kinds of stuff.
I don't know if maybe this is partly due to the higher proof, but like there was quite a spiritiness to it that's evolved and blown off. Like, I was almost getting this like hairspray or something kind of note to it, and that's settled down nicely. And the palate, thankfully, doesn't seem to have any of those notes to it. But I'm wondering, could that be something about like maybe the way it's distilled, that there's some, and the cut points, like how volatile some of the spirit is?
So this is the thing. So I kind of when you buy. So we can offer observations and stuff on it, but we don't know. These things were bought. Again, I was just looking up just to remind myself what the split on maturation was. I think this one had a this one has come to us via this has spent a bit of time traveling around the world. Where is it? It's harder to track these things down. 61. So this one so two, yeah, right. This one's got it's interesting. I can actually give you kind of an interesting kind of story. It's a MCDF mark is how it was sold to us. Distilled in February 2008, filled into American white oak in Venezuela, and then aged for 56 months. Then shipped to Dominican Republic in cask and aged for a further 40 months. Shipped to the UK in 2016 and refilled into recycled rum casks, where it resided until bottled by us. So this is kind of one where I actually kind of know where it's been, but we don't know about the distillation. The specifics of distillation are not conveyed to us when we buy it. And when you buy a rum, like in car, you kind of sort of see as purchase as seen kind of thing. It's like multi-column distillation, but like I kind of find it interesting to be certainly against batch one. This was a very interesting comparative. There were two very different rums seemingly from the same place with seemingly the sort of similarity in maturation. Difference between batch one had some French oak on it, of which we have more of that liquid, and we will hopefully be releasing it soon. But there are details that it would be lovely to know, but we don't know. We didn't make it, and the people that sold it don't necessarily. You could drop them a line, or phone them, but the chance of getting that information is so very slim that I kind of like. It is what it is. It's a snapshot. But the idea of a lot of these rums tend up in blends, and so they're blended out, and whatever makes this particularly special has been lost a little bit because the rums that would have gone into blends in like cacique or whatever in Venezuela, those rums have then been that cask has been sent on. It's been further aged, and when it then spends time in Liverpool, the terroir of Plutus is a very unique place in its own right. So you end up with something that's it's just a unique snapshot, and you have to kind of like when you're drinking indie bottling rums, you have to realize that the information doesn't convey, but it's more about, do you like? Do we enjoy? Is this good? Is this a rum that we really like? It's sold like batch two sold out straight away, and it goes out because people are interested in Venezuela rums, and so selling it's not necessarily a problem to us. It's easy enough to sell. On a personal level, I wouldn't drink rum quite as light as that. I like mine a little bit more. I like to taste the spirit a little bit more in the right kind of way. But it's nice. I think it's nice to have a little snapshot of what would be a blending mark in all other respects. It's the Panamanians particularly as well. I love the one that we got from Panama in our range. It's just like it's cool liquid. It's nice. That's the truth. Well, I answered the question or not. Should we move on to the next one? Like it's now it's like 1:30. Fair enough. Have we got that? There was. I keep seeing questions. I keep seeing things flashing up. I think it's mostly observational rather than.
Yeah, I don't think there's been any other questions, but Yeah, we can definitely move on to the Casa Santana rum, which
I was wondering whether we'd have Ivar on tonight, because he would have been offering opinion on this one. But
While you guys start moving on to that one, I just have to like mention as well, like I've had something from Corporation Alcohol de Caribe from like Cadenhead as well, and I couldn't help but make the joke that is like the most generic name ever. It's just Caribbean Alcohol Corporation. It tells you everything.
we are bulk facility. Come to us for your bulk Caribbean
Well,
rum
that's what
need.
it is. It is a facility. It is not actually a distillery in the way we would understand. It's just a big ass alcohol distillery that does stuff on, like Pampero or Cacique or stuff. It does blends for other people. So it doesn't have its own unique identity that something like Santa Teresa or the other one does.
And is it answerable to Nicolas Maduro? Sorry, I realize that's getting political.
I don't know. It might be. Who knows? You got to bend through hoops over there to get any kind of business done, right?
Yeah.
I think doing business in that part of the world comes with its own challenges. I don't need to add to them. Yeah, no, it's cool. It's good liquid. I like it. I like having it in the range. I feel very happy to have it there, and I should be looking for more of it as we move on. Casa Santana. I did fret about which order do I put this in. I kind of put this one. I want to put this one second because I want to spend a little bit more time on this one. My reasons for choosing rums come for various things. The Casa Santana is an aging facility in Colombia, who may possibly be starting to distill some liquid themselves, but mostly they're about buying liquid from different places and then aging it in a kind of a sort of a Cuban style. They have a couple of Maestro Raneros that went from Cuba ages ago to go over and work at the place, and they liked it and stayed there, and they kind of blend towards flavor-based style, just in the Cuban style. The reason Casa Santana, the reason we have this in there particularly is because Casa Santana make a bunch of private make rums for lots of other people in Colombia, but the one that they're famous for globally is a Solera rum, or Solera rum called Lechicera, and I know the people that make it, and I've been friends with them for a really long time, and I love Miguel's approach to it. He was talking about the trickery that goes into rum years and years ago, and also saying how unfair it was that he as a company were doing it honestly, and yet other people were getting away with blending in huge amounts of sugar and getting away with it and all kinds of other bullshit. Lechicera I think is a pretty decent blend, but it's not a Solera blend in the fact that it's a true Solera Crianza to Solera kind of like format blending. It's a blend of rums that are of different age marks. And I did a Twitter tasting under the Floating Rum Shack banner, which is where my journey into rum started, with the Floating Rum Shack. So as a rum blog kind of thing. And I did a Twitter tasting with them a few years back where we tried the various marks that went into production at Casa Santana and ultimately into the Lechicera blend. And so there was the unaged light white rum, there was the heavy white rum, there was the 3-year-old, the 6-year-old, 12-year-old, and then ultimately the Lechicera thing. And the one thing that came out of the Twitter tasting we did was a bunch of people in the UK going like, some of these age marks, these specific marks are really tasty. Like the 3-year-old was great, the 6 was wonderful, the 12 was fantastic. And kind of like afterwards, we go like, maybe let's just approach them and see if we could buy some. Like, let's buy like their 12-year-old mark. And so actually, this is going to be the first time I've had this in my mouth for a long time, and I'm quite excited about this one. So this is a blend of locations, so like Panama and Nicaragua and stuff like that. They buy rum from different places and then they're aging it at the facility. And so they're blending towards, so this is a complex, and this is not a single cask. This is lots of blending has gone to end up at this mark. And the truth of the matter is that in terms of that outrun, you can sort of see it on the label there, 3,766 bottles. That's a huge outrun. That's not a single cask. Because buying it direct from these guys, it's like, well, we could buy the equivalent of a cask of it, but the cost of logistics was so damn expensive to bring it back that it was just as cheap to buy an IBC of that, and also of a 6-year-old mark that we got. So it was just easier to just buy a bulk of it and bring it back, because just the cost per liter of kind of like of logistics. So again, this is one of these ones where we just had right at the beginning, it launched very quickly for us. We put it on there, and it was like in the UK, it was like just a smidge under 30 quid for a 58% ABV genuine 12-year-old rum, which like kind of like, you know, it's a car strength rum. We did drop it a bit. It was supplied to us higher than that. Dropped it so it was just under 60. It represented a fantastic value for money. There's a complexity to this rum, of which, having tried some of the heavier rums earlier on, maybe if it was at the other end, it'd be a little different. But
yeah, I just looked at the price on our site. It's $43, which is kind of crazy.
That's a really good price.
Yeah, especially as like comparing it to what a lot of whiskey drinkers drink. Like, I mean, yeah, this is a pretty baller rum for the price.
Yeah, and you know what? And so it sat there, and kind of like, this is as much to do with the sales effort at Atom. We kind of like, you know, the one part of the company is throwing stuff in a bottle and kind of putting it there. And then we're relying on the other part of the company to kind of get it in front of other people and talk about it. And obviously, Canada is, from a rum point of view, is a relatively new market for us. And so we're very grateful. Thank you for buying our rum. We appreciate it. But like all of a sudden, people realize the qualities of this rum, and we saw it in France and Italy, Germany. And then, like people were like, hang on a minute, this is a really good rum for this price. This is a great price. And also we went from lots to nothing. And again, I've bought a few of these, and if I told you what my staff price at Atom is just almost embarrassingly obscene. It's so good. So I'm using this. I'm using it in tastings. I'm getting it in front of people because again, we can talk about the fact that, you know, this idea of blending in complexity. This is a far better rum for being a blend of different styles. And but this idea of blending to make a complex rum. Blending is amazing. Blending is awesome. Single cask is obviously that quirky kind of look at a single cask as we just had with the CACD. But when you blend, you can make complexity into it. So we went from having lots in bond to nothing. And so like I wanted one more bottle to, you know, I all the rums we got here, the ones that are closed on in my little girl's rum heritance. You can't see all of them. They're kind of behind me and down and all kinds. There's a lot more kicking around there than you can actually see. But I wanted one because I wanted to be able to drink one in future, and so I had to buy one. I had to buy this one from Harvey Nichols, which is not the cheapest place in the UK to buy a bottle of rum from. Fortunately, I didn't open it. I found a sample bottle in my booze cabinet, so the one I'm drinking tonight is out of there. So that's really cool. It's complex. It's a bit of a, you know, I think it's a really interesting rum to have. We've got the batch 2 is the 6-year-old, which we chose to release at 45%, which I don't think it was such a recent release. I'm not sure it would have made its way to Canada yet anyway. And that's even more ridiculously well priced. But the point is, once people realize its qualities, they just kind of drunk it up like toot sweet. Casa Santana, the label, well, we had to play up on the musical connection. Like, I don't know if we've got any kind of rock people here. Santana, musician. This label is just full of Easter eggs for Santana's music. So if you can get a bottle in front of you, like, you know, then I think there's at least 10 musical references on there to the labels. Originally, Santana would have been on the label, but it turns out, from a legal point of view, if you put a person on the label, they can claim a percentage of earnings. And somebody like Santana, we don't, you know, Atom have done all kinds of shady things. No, that's the wrong word. I retract that entirely. They've done all kinds of edgy things over the years. And now Atom has a fairly developed, robust legal department to prevent them from making the same sort of mistakes they've made in the past. And so a use of personal image is something that we avoid these days, much to my embarrassment.
Yes, you were on what, 13 of them? 12?
Yeah, but I don't mind them being. That's fine. I sign off on that. Okay. And the lady in the middle on the label on that one is a sorceress, an enchantress. Of course, Lechacera means enchantress. So the label brand that the one they actually make at Casa Santana has the Lechacera means enchantress, and so that's why we have an enchantress kind of thing on the label. The condor on the left, as you look at it, is the national bird of Colombia. I put the praying mantis sitting there that you also find on the Lechicera label. However, chatting with the brand, they were kind of like, "Oh, Pete, you're edging into our icon a little bit too much," and so I swapped the praying mantis out for the condor. And then the lady with the on the right is Jenny, who was the brand manager. I don't know, there's something about brand managers at Atom, they don't seem to last very long. I'm on my fifth. Like, you know, I've outlasted a whole bunch of brand managers. They come and go with the seasons. But Jenny was the cool lass that was there at the beginning, so she was on there. But you know, Lechicera is a blend of rums up to 21 years old, so they're playing 21s. I don't know what you call that properly. I don't play cards very often these days. But then there's but there's a whole bunch of Santana references on there in terms of albums. Black Magic, Maria Maria are two that I might just throw out. Yeah, and there is an aging house. But I think they're really good. Unfortunately, Casa Santana has been bought by was it Pernod Ricard? It's Pernod Ricard. And so I kind of like, whether we'll be able to get more of this liquid, I'm not sure, but I really want to, because it just kind of there's that the bit that I realized with the rum world is that there has to be a price point accessibility to some of these things. You know, the price points are important in the UK. Like 50 quid is kind of like is one of those tipping points. You know, when a rum is over 50 quid, it's kind of like, oh, well, not sure where they buy it. You know, if it's under, then people. It's weird how numerical values kind of like make important decision making. So having something that's inexpensive, and that's the benefit of Casa Santana. For me, it was kind of like, you've got something that's really well priced. It's low risk. You can buy it. You can experiment. You can explore. You can jump into it without feeling like you're gonna, you're giving up. You can't make the next mortgage payment. You know, there's a bunch of rums in this world that I can't buy. I can't risk. I can't without trying them first. Of course, that's the other benefit for Atom, is they do drams as well. So if you're buying from Master Malt or whatever, drams. And it would be lovely if Atom sold the drams to other retailers to share on. But events like this are perfect because you get to try before you buy. It's like, low risk entry into, I've been there. I'm a cheapskate in general. I haven't got a lot of money in general, but there's a risk element. If you can try it or it's low price, you can get into it. So I've got so much love for this, genuinely so much love for this rum, because it opened up. It was like Foursquare 2004 all over again. Like a car strength, like amazing rum for a fabulous price. It's like, those moments never, they don't last. They're lost to time. But if you get the opportunity to buy in batch number 2, the 6-year-old, that is a whole different beast. You'd have thought it'd be similar, but it's not. A completely different tasting profile, and really an even better price. Just fantastic. So fingers crossed for the future. I apologize. I talk non-stop when I get into this. If anyone's got any comments on, please shout. It is one of these interesting ones where the labels, we talk about distilleries and stuff. In this case, we're talking about a blending house, and it fits the label very nicely. And the label, actually, we talk about it being multi-column rum because that's the common denominator. There is some single column heavy rum that goes into this, but we talk about multiple distilleries because there's 4 different producing locations that they bought rum from that's gone into this blend.
No, it's another great rum. I think for the price, it's killer. Sean, did you want to comment on that one before we move on to the last one?
The previous one was so like intense that this is like a nice kind of refreshing change. It was just so like dense, charred oak heavy. It was like actually reminding me of a bunch of warehouses. So this is a little bit more fresher, a little bit bright. I appreciate the age on it a little bit more too. And I guess I didn't really realize the price on it, like dollar value. It's pretty excellent for that.
I had to update it on our site because we didn't even have the age listed. It just said Casa Santana. And I mean, some of these things now, I think if people actually tried them, would disappear pretty fast because the prices are frankly, like, compared to a lot of other independent bottler rums we're getting, are really good. And that's even factoring in the smaller format bottles. So I know you sort of touched on it, Peter, but there was a question asked earlier. Well, not really a question, more of a statement about disappointment of not seeing Pablo Escobar on the label. Might we ever see like a Narcos series of labels from That Boutique-y Whiskey Company? Like,
we got honestly, it'd be nice. So we I was very quickly introduced to the fact that the legal department at Atom are quite robust in protecting our interests, which only goes to show that we have there's several people working in the legal department at Atom, which means that the whiskey people have already made some mistakes and have struggled financially or in court or whatever.
having said that, they did okay and approve a label featuring Sam Simmons and I pissing on a monument in Scotland. So
well, I think if you sign off use of image, then that's okay. It's the we're never going to get Santana to sign off on use of image on this, not without a huge amount of money. So we can never feature him on the label in this particular case. But we have had the Panama one. I got to say, our Panama, which is still number 2, is all about Van Halen. The original label brief, and it was hilarious and it was so good, and it was like, and then kind of like, it's one of those moments where the label went push back from legal, take out those elements, and what we really should have done is just drawn a line and go, like, you know what, let's just come up with a whole new concept. But like when you look at the label, it's like, okay, it was basically the concept was Van Halen make terrible lock keepers for the Panama Canal. That was the kind of like the title for it, and it was so much better when the first draft. And I see like the look on Lance's face. You really should have seen it. Like it was awesome. But they kind of like, okay, so we made it legal safe, but we should have changed it. I mean, it's still, there's nothing wrong with the liquid, and the label does give away. But like, oh my god, the original brief was hilarious. It's so good. I met Phoebe the other day. We Boutique-y Rum we've been 2018, we've been tagging along doing our thing, but Boutique-y Whiskey just enjoyed its 10th birthday, literally 12th of September, so very recently. We had a bit of a launch party in the UK, which was delayed a couple of weeks because Her Majesty did us a disservice of dying a few days before the launch party, so we put it off a couple of weeks, so it wasn't quite as the party didn't quite work the way it should have done, but it was we had a launch party, and it was nice. Boutique Whiskey has been around for a long time. They're well established. We're running to catch up, but Whiskey have done some good shit over the years. They really have. And I kind of like, you have to kind of, to understand rum, you have to understand where the chaps involved with Whiskey, and yeah, you and Sam pissing on a monument in Scotland. Well, you know what? That's a pretty edgy label under anyone's.
Well, to be fair, there's a deep story behind it. As it's turning out, many people who had monuments built for them or in their own honor turned out to not be such nice people historically. And this one guy, I have a personal connection. My mom's family was shipped to Canada, literally, to make way for sheep. And the way this guy did it was not particularly kind. So it was just, I had this idea when Sam offered us this Kleinlich of, celebrating the fact that I hiked up this mountain by Scottish standards just to piss on the monument. And when I told Sam this idea, I thought for sure he was going to say no. And it turns out the same year I did it, he had independently also hiked up the monument, and he had a photo of himself and some buddies urinating on the same monument. So that's how that came about. But it also allowed me to tell a bit of my own family story through it. So
we're sitting there with this, the colonial side of things. There's shit's been done in the past that I'm not proud of. Like, and we can get very deep on it. Maybe we shouldn't right now, but yeah, there's stuff that's happened before. If we can use the opportunity to pass comment, like, why not? We'll carry on doing it. In fact, it's funny how we're going to now go into the Haiti one.
Just briefly before we do that, since we're on the topic, you may not have seen it, Peter, but this is the label in question of Sam and I in our respective Canadian colors. This isn't quite the Rangers Celtic rivalry, but it's the Leafs Flames representing. So yeah, that was done purely as a way of, I don't know, maybe
Social
some
commentary.
kind of
Was that Jim
retribution.
as well, or somebody else?
What's that?
Who did the drawing?
Emily Chappell, who does all the whiskey labels.
Yeah, she's been a staple of there are the people come and go at companies, but like Emily's been there right since the beginning. Like, and obviously Ben, Sam joined later on. You know, I've been there right since the beginning of Rum. Like brand managers come and go, you know, kind of like it's interesting. It is nice working with them.
Well,
Some
you
cool.
guys have locked up. Jim will paint it quite well, because a couple of years ago, when you guys first started to come on the scene, at least to my attention, I contacted Jim directly because I wanted to do a cartoon of several friends of mine, you know, just hanging out together. And he says, no, I can't do any, by contract with Atom Brands, I can't do any pictures related to rum for anybody except them. So I said, damn, that's a serious lockup.
You can approach him now. Jim's not been involved for a couple of years. He got to the point where he was overloaded work-wise. And so Grace, who does the gin labels, actually has been doing our rum labels now for several years. And she does them in the style that we became known for. But you know, Jim's a funny kind of guy. I feel quite nice to have been rendered by Jim on a few different labels, and
he's
not in the lampooning way that he does of British politics. So you know, I kind of feel like I feel like I've come off quite nicely, you know. But yeah, it is a thing. We there was a point at Atom a few years back, which was almost an unsustainable thing, where they were bottling something brand new every day. In terms of it was either rum or whiskey or gin or whatever the other projects, the new product development team at Atom were churning stuff out left, right, and centre. And unfortunately, it was a thing where it was unsustainable in some respects. The Haiti, this is unique for a number of reasons. One, it's the only one that's been released, and I don't know how it happened, but it's been released as a country of origin. Haiti has many distilleries, not one. There isn't just one. And so this should be a secret distillery release. Sports logo. Okay.
Well, there's only one big ass distillery, and that's Barbancourt, and everybody else is pretty much either a minor player.
Possibly
right?
this comes from Barbancourt. What can I say? You know,
I was going to say,
you know.
I
But there are
literally
lots
know
of distilleries in Haiti. It should be a secret distillery release. It was a quirk.
I literally only know one distillery in Haiti, and it's Barbancourt.
Oh, there's lots of people making Claren though.
Yeah, but the first sip of this, it comes across, it reminds me of that old, not quite as rich, but it reminds me of that old bottling of Barbancourt 15. So
there's so there's lots of, I'm glad you made that kind of connection. So we had, so I've got, this is batch 3. I have batch 1 on my shelf, which is the same liquid. It's I've got bottle 4 of 10, only 10 bottles, because the reason it was all a rush, and the reason we made a cock up on calling it that instead of a secret distillery, is because it was one of the ones from our bespoke. We do bespoke bottlings for different markets, and I think it was Kirsch in Germany wanted they saw the Haiti cask on their label, and they wanted it, but they didn't want to pay a certain price. If you pay a full price, you get your own label design, etc., etc. If you pay for a lesser price, then you get the standard design, and then you just get your name written on the kind of thing, something along those lines. And so there was this massive rush to get a batch out to Kirsch, and so we rush, but they had to release a batch 1 in order for them to get the batch 2 as the standard label. And so we rushed the label out, and kind of like, and so it went through as Haiti. It should be a secret distillery. It should be. So I'm pissed off that in some respects that we've summed up the entirety of the complexity of rum making in Haiti by just lumping it all under one label, or one name. But you know, we'll kind of come back to that one. So in order to do batch 1,
Peter,
so
would you suggest this is just yet more colonialism?
Well, no, no, that's my
That's
design.
purely sarcastic. You actually don't.
No, the thing about secret distillery and stuff, like we can have this Bance, we can, but the label, I'll talk about the label in a minute, because I wanted to do something that was kind of making a thing. But the batch 1 was 10 bottles. We rushed it out there. I managed to grab 2 of them because I knew it was coming. I got so much abuse from so many people that like they didn't have an opportunity to buy the batch 1 when it went out. Honestly, it was like the biggest cock up we ever made, was just to do us. We did it just so this other market could buy the batch 2 at the pricing they wanted it. cock up on my part. I'm never doing that shit again. I get, honestly, so much abuse. Haiti, yes, you say it's Barbancourt. It is Barbancourt. Is again a split maturation between a good chunk in Haiti. Let's look it up if I get 2 seconds. And then a chunk of maturation in the UK. Where we got it. So distilled in 2008, 8 years in. Oh no, sorry, wrong one. Should have had the slides all set up. So distilled in 2004, matured in Haiti for 6 years, and then transferred to the UK for the remainder. I don't know whether it's sugarcane juice or syrup. It's made at Barbancourt, and it's honestly, I think it's glorious. I think it's just one of those ones where you kind of like, I got a car sample in front of me and go like, oh God, I love this. I can drink this all day long. Just that really nice balance. And again, I think that the large part of actually maturation in the UK has kind of allowed it to remain a little more spirit led. And oh, it's so honey though. It's just like, oh, I feel happy getting this. Honestly, I feel very happy getting this in my glass again. So when we were talking about Haiti, the label was kind of one that I did fret a little bit about this one in some respects, but I wanted Haiti to be known for, I wanted to kind of share some of the things that are really cool. And one of it is just the huge amount of creativity and artistry that the island has. And so it was the chap's name, remember? Sorry.
Simeon Michel.
Hector Hippolyte, that was the gentleman. So the chap in the white suit, Hector Hippolyte, he's famous for a bunch of things. Originally I was going to put a one of his works in there, but it felt wrong to sort of to use the imagery of his artistry on the label. So it was kind of like, you know, there's things. So the lady is sort of wearing the sort of traditional dress. We got Hector Hippolyte. We got Toussaint, General Toussaint, because Haiti is famous, obviously, for being the first Black Republic, you know, the first republic, and the punishment they've been received ever since for daring to kick out their colonial overlords, you know. But then the part was I'm gonna look at it just so I say it properly. The statue is it's a statue of the unknown slave, Laurent Inconnu. I don't know how you say that exactly.
L'homme inconnu or something like that. Is that what it is?
Exactly. It's this idea of kind of just of a history, and did I do it respectfully? I kind of like, this is the one label that I've swung backwards and forwards on this one, but my memories of visiting Haiti is it's such a colorful country. It's such an awesome place in many respects, and there's kind of like there's so much going on there that like Haiti sort of carries such a poor image, and I kind of wonder whether that's down to you know to the political kind of message, or whether people are I don't know. There's all sorts of things on it. I think Haiti is a wonderful country, and I think Haiti deserves far more exposure. So it should be Secret Distillery because it is a specific distillery rather than like trying to encapsulate the whole of Haiti in one bottling. So that's a cock up on our part, and I'm annoyed that I let that somehow slip past me, because I would like to bottle more from Haiti in future from other distilleries. There is a if you can see the label, there is actually a chap behind Hector and behind the lady. There's a chap with a cart and an umbrella over his cooler and fruit and stuff on there, and that's purely down to a personal experience. I was in Haiti. I went out to Haiti for a rum, ostensibly for a rum festival, the first Haitian rum festival, and a whole bunch of people were flown out to Haiti for this thing, and it dropped into financial difficulties very quickly, and Luca Gargano actually saved the whole venture by putting his hands in his pocket and spending lots of money. But once Luca realized he had lots of rummies out there from all around the world, he kind of like, okay, so now you're out there for the rum festival, but now you're in my hands. We're going to go and explore and spend some time and go and travel down. And so we went to see some Claren producing distillery, to Vaval and stuff. But on the way, like, so he hires like 12 cars, like, yeah, to load all these rummies in, and we had to drive down to the south of Port-au-Prince. And so I'm driving through Port-au-Prince in the early hours. It's like 6 a.m. kind of in the morning. The traffic's really bad, and I'm trying to follow the car in front because we haven't got sat nav, and I've got no idea where I'm going. And we get to the point where like I'm trying to cut across this busy junction. And like, fuck it, we're gonna have to make a gap for, there's a gap, let's jump out. And just as we get through, there's this guy pushing this fucking cart through the middle of the stupidest traffic junction, busiest thing ever, like literally pushing a cart through with booze. I mean, with this fruit cart, and they're like, you know, so this guy had to make it onto the label just for his sheer audacity, you know. Like, driving in the Caribbean was like, I've driven in some pretty awesome places around the world, but like downtown Port-au-Prince at rush hour was, fuck me, was one of the toughest driving experiences in my life. I think, you know, driving back was even because
I think I'm speaking for a lot of people here, and I'm not trying to trivialize the difficulties of Haiti, which obviously is very sad. But like, I'm impressed that you've been to Haiti, but the fact that you drove in Haiti already puts you on, like, you're basically like the Jason Bourne of the rum world here, as far as
it looked like it was I've never been anywhere in the world where the UN is kind of on the ground, like in terms of sort of, you know, protection kind of, or whatever you want to call it. Anyone's traveled to interesting places, but when you travel, you kind of look at your government's home office recommendations, and kind of like, you know, if the home office says don't go there, you're not covered by travel insurance. So it doesn't matter what level of travel insurance you've got, you're not covered. But like, so Haiti was kind of like, it was all right. It said like, good, but there's it said you're not covered. Basically, don't go to this area of this certain area of Port-au-Prince, which we only realized we were driving through on the way back from the trip. So, you know, the four of us in the car, my wife, Ian Burrell, and John Gibbons were in this car, and we decided that if anyone pulls that trick where they kind of back a car out and try and block the road, that we were just going to drive through that. We made a pact, the four of us. We were in a big car. We're just going to drive through that shit. We weren't going to stop for anyone. But on the way down, there was all kinds of shenanigans on the way down. It did put me, it did put me out a little bit. I'm outside my comfort zone, I'm not gonna lie. But like the roads, oh my fucking god, the roads out there are like awful. And it's all right when you're driving on it when you can see the roads, but on the way back it was like raining like the wrath of the gods, and there was like 6 inches of flood water across the roads. And so like potholes that would break axles that we knew were there on the way down. We couldn't see them on the way back because it was dark and the road was covered in water. Oh, it was the drive back was terrifying. The drive down was all right, but the drive back was terrifying. But you know, it's cool. But it just, you know, despite that kind of weirdness, it was a beautiful. Someone was killed not far from the hotel on one of the nights. There was a gunshot, and like it was in the papers for 5 days. Someone died, and it was because of the political situation that was going on. You know, and all these things kind of like add up to newspaper headlines about the negativity with the island, but like, you know, about the situation and political, but like the people there are just fabulous. You know, every personal experience on the island was just wonderful, you know, and we need to do more to promote Haitian rums, you know. And so Luca's thing about bringing Claren to the world is just, we absolutely should definitely do it. Anything we can do to support the people is just, you know, buy the rum, drink it, you know, it absolutely should definitely do it. It's a sad truth that a lot of the worst places in the world, the people there are lovely, but it's not them. So anyway, a very poignant story, and yeah, kind of sad. In the interest of time, because I know it's now after 2 a.m. for you, and this has been a great tasting, I'm gonna trigger the poll now. So people have a chance to vote, unfortunately. And Lance, I'm gonna actually, before I do this, I'm gonna unco-host you so you have a chance to vote. Okay. I don't know if you had a chance to try any of these. Lance has actually joined us all the way from Kuwait, where it's not legal
to have whiskey on hand. But Lance,
Hence
I'm
the
gonna, just because I bet you have a feeling what your favorites are, so we'll let you
Yeah,
vote.
I've tried actually a fair amount of these because Peter and I see each other quite often at rum festivals in Europe, so I can vote easily enough, no problem.
All right, well, the voting is pulled there. So the poll is open, people, you got a few minutes to vote. Now sometimes we do this and we're not gonna go through it, but sometimes we'll go through and nose and taste things a second time. I know not all of you have them. To me, what's cool is that first whiskey, the Diamond, has stayed extremely consistent the whole way through. The Engenhos now is like kind of like an after 8 dinner mint, but then there's also like this, I don't know, licorice root, damp licorice root thing coming out of it now too. First whiskey, right? If the poll says whiskey instead of rum, it's a Freudian slip. It's just the what I'm used to plugging in there. So forgive the Sean. I'm curious about you because I know you can't vote as a co-host here. What are your thoughts on these rums and any changes you've noticed as we go through the lineup here?
I don't know if I would say like they've all like any of them really like changed too much. I mean, I did pour them like a good 15 or so minutes before the tasting, so they had a little bit of time to breathe. I think so. Like I mentioned before, like I'm still relatively early in kind of where I'm going with rum and kind of developing what I've loved, developing kind of like exploring a little bit more. The Alberta market has always been so saturated with like those like Spanish country descent rums,
Macro rums.
yeah, and it's never really been my favorite. In fact, I think that was just having those was part of why I didn't really get into it until I started tasting something like Jamaica and a few others, and so like I'll point out my favorite tonight is the Madeira, and I think the part of the reason, like I've even had agricoles that I found very boring and kind of whatever, but like it's a little ester heavy and it's kind of exciting and it's fun. It's like I love those licorice notes. I don't know. It's like that's my pick for the night. But I also want to mention too, like I saw Peter, you mentioned I can't remember what it was called, but the white Madeira as well. And I saw a bottle of that in London like a few weeks ago, and I've read about, I think it was either you or Lance, I read you guys talking about it, and I was so close to buying it, but I had to pass. I bought 2 bottles of your Bellevue instead, but still, I was so close.
I should have one of each. That would have been better, more variety, right?
Yeah, you're right. But I think like, I don't know, I guess like word around is like those 98 Bellevues are starting to get a little harder to find. So I kind of wanted to snag a few while none's come to Alberta. So I kind of had to get them while I could.
Yeah. The Bellevue is delicious. So good.
Yeah.
It really is amazing. If you get the opportunity, the 9-month rested Rosinio is fabulous.
So, okay, sorry. Can you say the word again? How do you pronounce it again?
Rosinio.
Okay.
Engenho de Not.
Ingenia. Okay.
Engenho.
That's the Engenhos is Engenho.
Engenho. Yeah. And it's Engenho in the case of this one, because it's multiple distilleries that are working together. And the other one we have from there, the Engenho Nova de Madeira, it's because it's a single mill.
Okay.
So a single company. And this one's wonderful as well.
Sean, I think the bottom line, and you're going to have to remind me about this, is we're going to have to ask for a new price list for rums.
Yeah, I guess, right. Yeah. So
I'm sure.
So you haven't quite like committed or started exploring trying to bring any Clarins or anything like, but you said you want to.
So I would like to. There was there's nothing's off the table right now. I know that if I have a very white rum heavy selection, then it's a much more difficult sell on a global market. We have right now, Japan is a huge taker of our rums right now. It's kind of weird, and I'm like, fuck, you know, I hope they carry on, but like, you know, but it's there. We sell these rums, get sold all around the world. and I see things with age statements or recognizable points of origin sell way easier than others. And this is kind of representative of the general sort of lack of knowledge on the market. I love agricole rum. I'm glad you like the Engenhos de Norte. I think the North Distillery rum is just beautiful. But I also find this one quite safe in the scheme of things. I think this is a very nice, easy kind of entry into aged Madeira rum. You know, it's only 7 years old, but it's like very easy and a very easy in. And you know, the Orizinho White, the first one is where we got actually quite a lot of our reputation based on it, because we launched our white rum. We've got a batch 2 at 57% ABV, which is just wonderful. You know, a lot of bang for buck for, you know, and people working, bartenders love it because great price and they can use it in cocktails and things, you know. And so this is where actually I think we did a lot of it, and this is down to me. I like this. I like drinking it, but it's a harder sell. If you put it on a piece of paper and go like an unaged agricole rum at 57%, you know, unless you know.
I think a lot of that comes from people's love of numbers, right? Like one of the things that I've noticed in the past is that, and I was as guilty of this as anybody, is that when you see something as unaged, you tend to think of it as 0 years, which is what it is. But you tend to, because of all the past history with whiskeys and single malts or whatever, you tend to think that the better rums are the ones that are older, as well as whiskeys do. And therefore you skip over all of this really excellent stuff that is made in the islands, that is pretty much an island secret. I mean, in Martinique and Guadeloupe, it's an old joke, you know, and I literally have heard people tell me this, you know, yeah, we make white rums for brown people, but brown rums for white people. You know, I was just like, what? You know, this is an actual quote I'm telling you.
Lance, that sounds like a version of the gringo tax.
Pretty much, pretty much. But I think it's just people just don't know enough about it, and it's up to us to kind of like just, you know, pass the word around. Look, these things are really quite incredible, and I think they are.
It is, but they're the hand sell. It's a hand sell situation. You have to kind of get people into it. You know, I was saying my first experiences of agricole rum, blanc agricole, were not good. I didn't understand what was in my glass. You need to share that moment and get people involved. And so the enthusiasts are these environments are the kind of the really important. So, you know, we'll keep working. It's all right. It's a wedge. We just keep driving that wedge in. We're going to get there, you know. Eventually, you're all going to meet me somewhere on the road and you're going to like, yeah, Pete, I really like that Madeira and agricole. Yeah, fucking right. Right, you do, you know. You're right.
No, for sure. All right, I'm going to share the results of the polls tonight, and I think you're going to be happy about this, Pete, because the Engenhos de Norte and the signature blend,
Engenhos.
I feel like my dad here, who butchers every. I'm actually pretty good normally, though. To be fair, Portuguese is a very, very weird pronunciation. But regardless, that and the signature blend coming tops tonight. I didn't share my favorites, but the signature blend was definitely in there. I'm actually the one I'm a little surprised about in the first round of voting is the Casa Santana, because I thought that showed really well. But what's interesting is if you look at the second favorites, the Diamond and the Casa Santana.
Yeah.
Because the Casa Santana was my second favorite after that signature blend. So
yeah, I agree.
The Diamond was mine, so I don't know why it shows a 0.
Yeah. Well, no, but it tied for second favorite. So, you know.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, a good spread there. Everything got a little bit of love. A great.
That is the world of rum right there. I mean, like we've just done 7, and the Boutique-y Rum Company, we can have a completely different spread of like 7 rums, but we've jumped around quite a lot in flavor profile in that one, and we can do it again. And that's I think the strength of this company. We have a lot of different rums there, you know. But like I stand by them. I think they're good booze, you know. But we could do it all again next Saturday and have 7 completely different ones.
Well,
and that's also the strength of the company, I think.
To be fair, we actually have Boutique-y Dave lined up next Saturday for a European whiskeys tasting. But
so he'll be far more sober than me.
Yeah, but Sean and I are gonna have to talk to the Crush guys in Alberta about getting a new price list. And this is something that we could very easily do again sometime next year. Because this was, I mean, for me, this is a good learning experience. I think it was a very fun tasting too. Jeff made a great comment about Dalmore there. We won't go into it, but I think he was trying to say that the solution to the problem you were suggesting is what we call Dalmorification, or the adding of E150, which, to be fair, none of us actually want you to do, but you know, that's the world we live in.
There's so much conversation on caramel. Honestly, working with Atom, working with a company that has an online retailer and sales data based on, like, honestly, there's just so much more. We could really enjoy ourselves. We've also got we've not released it properly in terms of publicly, but like in January we've got our second visit to Australia launching. We got some fabulous Australian rums. I've got like 3 really cracking Australian rums releasing in January, which we were kind of like the launching here in the UK. So they've been sold out to the salespeople in UK and beyond at this time of year, which is complicated because Christmas gets right in the fuck Christmas. Like, it makes it complicated. But like, we got some fabulous stuff coming up. Genuinely, we got a cracking, honestly, we got some amazing rums, so it'd be really nice to share some of these things with you guys. But yeah, like, Crush, they're the gateway. So we need to get them to buy some.
Actually,
thank you. I enjoyed tonight though.
we'll just tell them what they have and we'll order it and it'll come in and it'll all be fine.
I don't know whether they've ordered any yet, so I need to squeeze somebody. If you happen to mention, oh, I hear you got some Aussie rums coming, that'd be great. That might, maybe if you pull and I push, maybe we'll get some in,
We're gonna make this happen, Peter, I assure you. Anyway, for a guy who had a cold or some kind of virus from events over the last week, you've been a bit of a trooper tonight, so I want to thank you for that, staying up late with us. This tasting went long and you kept everybody in line for it too. So Peter, thank you very much for that. This was a great tasting. Lance, thank you for joining us from Kuwait in the wee hours of the morning. Nice to see you, and I guess we'll see you in town sometime in the next month or so.
Yeah, I'll be back by then, I hope.
What's the time for you, Lance?
Yeah,
it's just about 4:15 in the morning.
Sun coming up, eh? Sun's coming up.
Yes.
that's right. Well, Peter, Sean, thanks for being in here. Lance, thanks for joining us. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I hope you have a great night. We'll definitely do this again. This was a great tasting.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Look after yourself. Get that cold or whatever it is tackled.
Excellent. Thanks everyone.
Guys. Thank you very much. I enjoyed sharing that tonight.
Enjoy your everybody. Thanks a lot again, Andrew. Peter, talk to you some other time. Bye.
See you all, guys. Ciao, ciao.